Hi everyone, my name's Bear Claw Price. I'm one of Jonathan's best friends, and I wanted to make sure that he had a proper eulogy. So bear with me here. It's called Long Live Jonathan Lee Horne. The first time my roommate Dave Flatman brought home his best friend and bandmate Jonathan to our Brooklyn apartment, affectionately known as Hotel 673, I was mortified. We had hosted a holiday rager the night before, complete with a strobe light dance party, and all that remained of the festivities were countertops littered with dead soldiers, furniture wildly out of place, and footprints on the living room tile made of mud and sloshed beer. Jonathan, being the forever polite house guest, took off his shoes. I had just finished a long serving shift and had won a bottle of crap red wine in a sales contest that night. It was all I had to offer the smiley, tassel-haired boy, and Jonathan was beyond stoked. Seeing as how there wasn't a clean glass in the joint, I poured the red wine into coffee mugs, and it was there, on that dingy leather couch in our Williamsburg apartment, that Jonathan and I instantly knew we were cut from the same cloth. Dave and Jonathan were thick as thieves in the truest sense of the phrase. I remember watching them in awe. They were two best friends that made music, went to ball games, bounced around to their favorite cocktail bars, made friends everywhere they went, got afternoon tattoos of tacos and sports balls. It was so incredible to witness two grown men who genuinely loved each other, encouraged one another, and had so much fun. On the evenings I finished work and turned up to see their band Gnarly Davidson play a show in Bushwick or catch up with them at bars, I was fully welcomed as one of the crew. Never once was I made to feel like the tag-along. We morphed into a packaged deal, as Dave would years later describe to his fiancée Katie. At that time, we were in the throes of living out our New York City dreams when the hard decision day came for Dave. He loved his life and friends in Brooklyn, but he was finally getting a shot at his dream of opening Screwdriver Bar in Seattle with two of his best buds. Moving across the country had the added bonus of being near his family again, and it was an opportunity that Jonathan and I fully supported, knowing he needed to go, but also knowing that meant an aching loss for us. In Dave's absence, while he built out his business, fell in love with his extraordinary equal, and became both a father and a homeowner, Jonathan and I grew closer by the day. Take a deep breath. We'd meet up for an outdoor movie in the park, snag hefty $3 glass goblets of Budweiser at Rockarola, or sometimes an afternoon shot in a beer combo at International Bar in the East Village. We walked across the Williamsburg Bridge. He helped me move out of one mobster's apartment into a different mobster's house. When he lost his favorite orange and blue Mr. Met hat, I scoured eBay until I found the exact replacement. We never ran out of things to talk about and had each other's backs even when we were down. This past week, Jonathan and I did an awful lot of reminiscing over video chat from his hospital bed at Ascension St. Vincent's. He recalled one particular night he invited me to go see a show with him at Baby's All Right. Some hot shit indie musician I had never heard of was headlining, but Jonathan was most excited to introduce me to his friend and Joyful Noise Recordings colleague Jonathan Gatt after the show. There were several moments from that evening I'll never forget, but I remember most clearly that Baby's All Right's plumbing was busted and I really had to pee. Jonathan accompanied me across the street to the closest bar, which happened to be cash only, and when I asked permission to pop into their bathroom, they declined. I checked my wallet, but only had cards. Without missing a beat, Jonathan threw down $30 and ordered 2 shots of gin just so I could use the bathroom. A short time after, the next hard decision to make was Jonathan's. His long-term girlfriend Jack was ready to move back to Indiana, and he chose to follow that big old heart of his and leave the city he loved. It meant they could stay together with their ferret children they loved so dearly, and it also meant getting his opportunity to really dig in his heels at Joyful Noise. Water break. Our last New York City hang day was epic. We embarked on a one-and-done tour of all of his favorite places. Later that evening, when we were making our way through the cobblestone streets of the Seaport Village, a rat ran across the sidewalk at the exact moment my right foot made a stride forward. I booted that poor rat so hard that all 3 of us screamed. Maybe it was the booze talking, but we laughed long and hard over that damn rat as we made our way down to the dark pier on the East River, where the iron-hulled tall ship Waver Tree creaks and groans against its mooring. We took turns playing lookout so each of us could pee behind the closed Haagen-Dazs stand, and then we found a bench where we sat and stared across the twinkling water at the red-lettered bank sign in Dumbo that lists the time and temperature. I thought I was heartbroken then that my dear friend was going. Little did I know. He promised me that night that our friendship wouldn't change, and true to his word, things evolved, but nothing was ever lost, only gained. We adjusted to texts, Instagram walkie-talkie messages, and hours-long video chats late at night, cheersing by clinking half-empty bottles of whatever we could afford against our webcams. On days he was hurt or frustrated, I would say, "I'm still up if you want to chat, but no worries if you're tired." "Down to chat, but I'll warn you I'm in a mood." "It's up to you, that don't scare me none." And he'd say, "I love you, call me." We finished every conversation we ever had feeling better than when we started, just for spending time together. He never ran short on I love yous. That's something I've always deeply adored and appreciated about him. Whether someone was an asshole, passing acquaintance, or his closest friend, he had no problem concisely expressing how he felt about them directly to their face. He was a fierce defender and a compassionate humanist who understood social responsibility and was open to everyone that he met. Jonathan's voice was clear, and although he could be self-deprecating, sometimes comically and sometimes not, he was also never short on expressing his admiration for the people he respected. He'd often get downright giddy, like when his favorite band asked him to do a lathe-cut record run for them, or when he talked about his love for Kate McKinnon from SNL, or the film Dirty Work, or the Tom Waits quote, "He still wanted to get tattooed. I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than a frontal lobotomy." From his hospital bed the first day, he told me he was bummed he didn't stay at work longer to complete the project he was working on. It was a big order for a Christmas album lathe cut, and he was something like 85% done. I couldn't fathom why he was thinking about work when he had just received a cancer diagnosis, but that was Jonathan. He wanted so badly to have everyone's approval, but he didn't want it handed to him. He needed to work his ass off to earn it. And in turn, he never wanted to let anybody down. On the occasion he did feel he let you down, he'd apologize until you begged him to stop apologizing and assured him that everything was cool. He just cared in the most earnest, endearing, and spirited way because Jonathan loved witnessing his friends succeed. He'd run himself ragged without sleep sometimes to make sure he could get out and cheer on a friend's band one night and then work a double the next day. He also made it known that anyone could come to him for help with anything and he'd find a way. When Dave and Katie first announced their baby shower in Seattle, we were electric with excitement. Travel plans and text buzzed back and forth for weeks, and the moment our planes landed and we were all reunited, we instantly felt a deep, calming sense of home. We had an extraordinary time meeting Dave's family and close crew of friends. Matt, one of the friends we made there, texted me when he heard of Jonathan's passing to say, "He just made it so easy to love him." Meeting was just like reuniting with an oldest friend. He was that friend you never knew yet. All three of you were like that. Dave, Jonathan, and you were that same feeling when I met all of you for the first times at different times. I think that says something about how all three of you found each other. Our Seattle visit was the most organic and joyful introductions to a new city, and it really resonated with Jonathan. He badly wanted to move there and was getting serious about figuring out the transition to continue his work with Joyful Noise from Seattle, just as the pandemic hit and his move got put on pause. As the restaurant industry was thrown out of work overnight, the lucky ones who had insurance lost it, and the perpetual safety net of knowing there was always another job to pick up when one ended vanished. Mid-April, in the height of New York City's crisis, I needed emergency dental surgery for a failed root canal. Jonathan knew I was terrified to leave my house, let alone figure out how to pay for surgery and not have a meltdown with a stranger's hands in my mouth. He made sure to text me before and after the surgery to check up on me and make sure I was all right. Fast forward to a few weeks later when George Floyd was brutally murdered. Jonathan responded to the call and peacefully marched for days on end into Indianapolis, surrounded by neo-Nazis and violent cops who were throwing chemical weapons at his head. I'm sure some of you remember he made the news, doubled over as he worked through the tear gas. An avid protester myself, I made sure that before he hit the streets that he had legal aid's phone number to write in Sharpie on his arm and extra water to flush his eyes. I was so proud of him. I still am, every damn day. The last thing I want to touch on, aside from his integrity, thoughtfulness, loyalty, adaptability, and infectious joy, was his massive fucking talent. Man, could that guy shred. I asked him once how in the world he came up with his riff a day, not to mention his other songwriting. And you know what he told me? He hears ideas. He doesn't think them or visualize them or plot them. He hears them. He could pick up any instrument and actualize the melody dancing in his mind. The day he wrote me a xylophone riff, I was astonished. It was funky, feisty, and me to a T. This last July, he wrote a riff that moved me deeply, and I responded, "That tune makes me want to slow dance in a barn." "You made my heart smile, and that's why I will love you for the rest of my life," he said. "Thank you, I needed that." I responded, "Well, you're especially in luck because I love you forever back." That exchange is something I hold close. His aptitude for cocktails and lathe-cut records, those were talents born out of interest that budded naturally but took a lot of fucking work. He studied, experimented, and expanded to be one of the best talents out there through tenacity, dedication, and loads of practice, all garnished with his catching charm. When he loved something or somebody, he poured every ounce of himself into making it the best he could. Water break. Also, please enjoy my hives. I can speak for both of us without permission or hesitation when I say that Jonathan is as much a part of Dave and I as we are of him. Dave and I were together on the phone the exact moment Jonathan left us, and what seemed like a frantic, desperate, critical call of warning now feels like an intentional, weighted part of his passing. We're a package deal now and forever, and somehow Jonathan made sure we were intact, all three of us connected, even as he made his exit. That night, after speaking with his mother, for whom I owe a debt of gratitude for her inclusive, gracious, loving support this last week, I walked straight down to the water. From the Brooklyn side, I stared across the East River to the exact spot in Manhattan where Jonathan and I savored those last celebratory moments before he moved. It is an irregularity of note that while I clung to the river railing, grieving in the most primal way, a shooting star streaked high above that place where we all last sat. In 9 years of living in New York City, it's the first and only I have ever seen. Then again, with Jonathan's luck, maybe it was just a tear-blurred flaming piece of trash caught in the January wind, but I'm quite certain of what I saw. Acute grief is one thing, but losing Jonathan so quickly, so brutally, so unfairly, and in the time of COVID, when the nourishment of a proper goodbye has been distorted, it's an overwhelming hurt that has no name. A wedge of me went with him, a wedge I will never get back, a wedge I do not want back. It's a fundamental piece of me that I need him to keep, carry, and to hold. When I think on our truth, cut from the same cloth, perhaps our fabric is nothing more than a composite of shared identity, shared trauma, desire to be loved, pride, fight for acceptance, a yearning to see our labors inspire others, and an insatiable appetite for joy. Whatever its composition, our bond has been formidable, and it's one of the greatest loves and greatest losses I will ever know.
So, with a coffee mug of shit red wine, I toast to you, my sweet, smiley, dear, dear friend. Long live Jonathan Lee Horne.